Greetings, friends. My name is Jessa McLean, and I'm here to provide you with some blueprints of disruption. This weekly podcast is dedicated to amplifying the work of activists, examining power structures, and sharing the success stories from the grassroots. Through these discussions, we hope to provide folks with the tools and the inspiration they need to start to dismantle capitalism, decolonize our spaces, and bring about the political revolution that we know we need. We are back with another great story for our Tenant Power playlist. You might even recognize the voices you're about to hear if you caught our coverage of the Toronto Tenant Union's first convention back in May. Stelios and Jerry, tenant organizers at 240 Markland, are back to talk to you about the fight against a most despicable landlord. They're also going to update us on their first appearance at the Ontario Landlord Tenant Board, where they challenged the first of five back-to-back above-guideline rent increases. These massive hikes go against everything they were promised by the city, but are only a part of Carterra Management Inc's larger campaign to push out all of the legacy tenants there. These folks were minding their business. Some of them had lived there for decades, paying their rent without issue, when this soulless pension fund / property management took over and really made it their mission to squeeze every possible dime out of their so-called investment. And again, despite getting initial assurances from the city that they would not be priced out of their home, the tenants here have been left to defend for themselves against a real monstrosity of an enemy. Because they're not just facing off against Carterra Management Inc., they're up against a whole system, right? And nothing makes that more clear than when you hear about their experience and their treatment that they received at the Landlord Tenant Board. Now, here on Blueprints, we've heard a lot of examples of landlord bias at the LTB, but the way these tenants and the evidence they had collected were dismissed and discounted, it takes the cake. And they've still got 4 more challenges to go. The good news is that Stelios and Jerry are prime examples of what landlords like this will be facing. Smart, determined, resourceful people who have now built a community in response to these attacks, and who are also now organizing under the even larger banner of the Toronto Tenant Union. So they may not have beaten back the first unfair rent hike, but they have learned a lot, and they're here to share some of that with you today. I'm excited for you folks to hear from these two. They really are an inspiration. So please be sure to share their story once you're done listening. Let's get to it. Welcome back, gentlemen. Can you introduce yourself to the audience, please? We'll start with Jerry.
Hi, I'm Jerry. I live at 240 Markland Drive, and I'm part of the TA association here, and we're fighting.
Hi, my name is Stelios, also known as Steve. I'm also part of the Tenant Association here at 240 Markland Drive. I help run the TA, and I help run a lot of the other legal initiatives that we are going through right now as well.
And we're going to talk about those, and hopefully some other tenants can learn from your experience. We've spoken to you before. We're reintroducing you to the audience a little bit. If you heard our special from the Toronto Tenant Union inaugural convention, we spoke to Stelios and Jerry outside of the convention just to get their feels for what was going on, and we got a hint of the drama unfolding that has been unfolding at 240 Markland for some time. One of the most astonishing things that you shared with us was that your building had been issued 5 AGIs. Those are above grade increases, so above the so-called rent control. And it was this 5 in a row, like 1 year after another?
Yes. Yeah, they started back in 2022, and they've just given us one ever since. The last one we just received notice from was 22%, I believe.
The one that's currently in the LTB hearing process is a 22.5% increase. Yes, so it's 5 consecutive starting in 2022, And then we're currently litigating the second one, which is a 22.5% increase.
Wow. That's an astonishing number. I mean, like, for context, like, the guideline for rent increases, like the max that is usually allowed is what, like 2 to 5%, I believe.
2.5, yeah, this past year,
Yeah.
and then next year's 2.1. No,
Well, it depends. So 2022 was a 1.2% guideline increase. 2023, which is what we're fighting now, is a 2.5% guideline increase. So initially, we received an N1 notice, so that's the legal documentation required for the landlord to serve 90 days in advance of any rent increase. They informed us of a 3% AGI, which would have put us at 5.5%. But then further along in the process, as we were going through the litigation and looking into the matter in greater detail and going through the documentation, we realized that they had actually applied for a second AGI for that actual year, and the amount was actually 22.5%, not 3%. So it's a big kerfuffle with the current one that we're fighting altogether. So it's pretty insane, to be honest.
That's fucking bold, to apply and over and over again, and then to see resistance building and to reapply again, right? Like, tenants are fighting back. So let's go back to getting the first one. Now, a lot of people we find, unless they're with a tenant association or have some experience with the issue, they tend to think, the landlord's word is golden. And if the landlord tells you that your rent is going up or that you need to leave, you're being evicted, that's it. That's that. So what was your experience when you received the first N1 for the first rent increase? Did you find that people were immediately ready to fight back, or were they dismayed and kind of thinking that there was no recourse, that they were just shit out of luck?
well, part of it is at the time when we got our first AGI, this building was full, and out of this building being full, a good 60% of it is probably senior citizens at the time. And so they had no idea what even an AGI meant or what it was, and like the company itself didn't explain it very well. And so people were really mixed up. Like, so there was some people who were angry and wanted to fight. There was some people that were scared and wanted to run. And some people, I'm sure, that we don't even know about, just paid what they had to pay and moved on. Like, the system itself is flawed because it doesn't take into consideration that a lot of these people have no prior knowledge, including myself, on any of this, how it works. And until we have someone like Steve that can stand up and say, well, no, wait a minute, this is wrong.
Yeah, I would say people knew off the bat that something was wrong. They definitely knew that, okay, wait a minute, there's something here is faux pas, but they definitely didn't know how to fight it. They definitely didn't know how to approach it. So that's where kind of we came in. So, and that being said, not that we were experienced at it either. Like, it took a lot of research and reading and a lot of resources, but like people realized really early on that it was wrong. But like Jerry said, a lot of our tenants here are seniors, so like they really didn't even know what the first step was. So they just knew that they knew they had to oppose it, but they didn't know the mechanism to do so.
The process is deliberately made to a certain extent to be based off of ignorance, right? Off of not understanding the process. From my understanding with AGIs as well, like with the simple application, a lot of landlords will then begin to like charge tenants as if it has already been approved, and the tenants not knowing that they don't actually have to pay those rates until it's approved, or that they even have the power to contest it at all.
Correct.
Right? I mean, it's it shouldn't be a process where you almost require like a law degree to understand how much you owe in what is for most people the largest expense in their monthly budget, right? Their rent. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, the way it's laid out in the N1, it's unless you read the second page and understand the literature and litigation or the legislation, people think automatically that, oh, as of July 1st, that you're required to pay that increase. People don't realize that increase is in fact not approved, and the landlord is only subject to collect those increases upon approval from the LTB. So like people will just pay it, the increase, not knowing that, hey, wait a minute, you're only required to pay the guideline, and it's only upon approval that the landlord is able to collect the AGI. But like we had to explain that to people. It didn't that's something that wasn't known. Like it's not common knowledge. You don't like I don't know that people ever like people have lived here for 50 years and never seen an AGI in their life. Like people like I imagine even out there in the real world, people don't know what that is. So like it's kind of an exploitation really of the legislation. But yeah, it's just it took a lot. Like we had to be honest, there's been a lot of on our part, we've had to take on a lot of like education for people, and like we've had to hold like little meetings and clinics, and a lot of what we've had to do is bring people up to speed on what their rights are, to be honest.
It's a bit of a shock tactic, the 22.5%, right? No one's really meant to be able to pay an increase in their monthly expenditures like that. Like in reality, we know most people just don't have that kind of wiggle room in their income. So it's designed to drive you out of the building, I imagine, right? It's a pipe dream to think that all those same residents that have been paying X could then withstand 5 AGIs that I imagine are compounded, right? That's 22.5% on top of the 22.5% that they get approved or not approved, right? Let's go back to the infancy days, though, of your TA, of getting this kind of first shocking push, right, to push you folks out. Talk about what it was like organizing in those days, if you can remember, because you're saying you went into this a little bit of a layman as well, right? How did you know that there was opportunities to fight back? And how did you convince your fellow residents?
I'll just say, first of all, that until this company bought this place and they put forward the first N1 and the first AGI, I actually didn't even know who Steve was. You know, we'd pass each other in the hallway. But so ironically enough, what this company did is actually took a bunch of strangers and brought us all together, and we became somewhat of a family and a coalition together to fight them. Because up to that point, like it was a pretty quiet little building. Like everyone just kept their heads down, did their own thing. Like, you know.
Yeah, the one positive that did come out of obviously there's a bunch of negative, but one of the positives that came out of it is there was always a sense of community here, but I think it's actually brought people closer together. Like the fact that we've had to unite and fight against a landlord as a unit is, I think it's really brought people together. So, I mean, it's unfortunate that it took that to do so, but the one positive I would say, like Jerry pointed out, that did come out of it is that we are probably closer as a community. But prior to the hedge fund buying the building in 2020, it was a quiet building. It was really well maintained. It was very dated, but that was part of the charm, to be honest with you. Like that's like I loved living here and like having an old intercom where you look for the unit number, you hit the button, like that's, to me that was part of the charm. Like, and then everything worked. So like, was it old? Was it dated? Yeah, but like everything worked fine. Like, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then just a hedge, like a pension fund bought the building, came in, and they completely changed the dynamic of people, of the way we lived. Like people's lives have been really affected, and unfortunately in a negative way as a result of the purchase of the building, right? So it's really, as you said, there's negative, but the positive is it's really brought people together in a sense.
A good chunk of people. And on the other side of the coin is we've also had a lot of people that just packed their bags and left. They couldn't deal with the stress. And because it was pretty, in the beginning, it was pretty brutal too. Like the company that bought this place was not hiding the fact that they wanted us out. Any legacy tenant, because they just wanted us all out. They wanted to renovate all the places so they could double the rent, and they were very clear between hydro being shut off, water being shut off. Conveniently enough, they say it was broken, but you know what I mean. This is all before the AGIs even hit. I'm sure the AGIs were in the planning, but is the tactics they use to try to get us all to leave. It actually worked. Like Steve, I asked you earlier about the percentage of people who actually left due to the ongoing BS.
It's been, they haven't, there's no secret of what they're doing. Like their tactics are not subtle. Like they've outright pushed people out. Like there's no regard for laws, bylaws, human rights, none. Like it's like it's funny, I have a sign here. You probably won't be able to read it because it'll show it backwards on the camera. But this is literally a sign that I have to hang on my door. I'll leave it up there for like 10 seconds and then I'll take it down. Okay? Because the property management here, they go into people's units and they vandalize and they break stuff and they steal stuff just to get people to leave. Like it's out of a movie what the tactics of what they've done here. Like it's pretty crazy, to be honest. Like it's like people don't believe me when I tell them, to be honest. People think I'm off my rocker. So it's pretty bad, to be honest.
I remember you describing it, as almost like mob tactics, the relentlessness and the kind of underhandedness that goes above and beyond trying to price you out of your unit.
Oh, yeah.
Well, as an example is, it's now 2026, July. They still haven't completed the construction around our building. They've built a whole new building beside us. New sod, new beautiful flowers, pavement, sidewalks, everything. And we still have dirt around our building, literally dirt all around our building. Like our parking garage is nothing but filth. They're still to this very day doing everything in their powers to aggravate us to the point where we just have enough and leave. Problem is, in today's Ontario, where do you go? You can't afford to go anywhere.
Yeah, the projects that should have taken 6 months, they're on year 6 and they're still not done. It's not an accident. So,
fire alarms. We get fire alarm testing here at least every 3 to 4 weeks. They say it's in the guise of, okay, well, we put new elevators in, so we need to do it here. The new building has the system is connected, so we have to do fire. But at the end of the day, we have fire alarm testing on a regular basis, and it's like it's harassment. But of course, no one will listen to us. So the city just puts a blind eye to almost everything that this company does.
Yeah, they use health and safety, or they use like safety as a mechanism for harassment. That like any mechanism of harassment you can draw up, they use. That's how bad it is.
What's the name of the hedge fund? I mean, we've got to be
no problem
naming and shaming.
Absolutely, I'm glad. I didn't know if I was allowed to, but thank you. It's Carterra Equities Management Inc. So they're down with all the other evil landlords at 20 Adelaide. So I've been to other protests at the building there, and they're just one of the other tenants, I guess, in that tower that are also the bad landlords. So yeah, Carterra Equities Management Inc. They're a Canadian pension fund. They're basically a smaller version of Brookfield.
And unfortunately, they bought this property under the guise they were going to destroy it and build everything from scratch. And then that's when the city actually had a set of balls and said, no, that building has to stay. And then they gave us a Section 37, which, we'll get to later on. So the whole thing is that I believe, my opinion, is Carterra is just pissed off that we're still here. This building should have been destroyed, and they should have been able to start from scratch, and then there would have been no rent control, right?
Yeah, that's another good point. So they bought the building, and they actually applied to tear it down. So they were going to they built a building next door to us, but they applied to tear our building down and I guess have a mass development. But because we're rent controlled, the city of Toronto denied them the permit to tear the building down. So they were forced to do their development next door with keeping our building here. And it really does seem that they're taking that out on us. Like, yeah, they're upset that they didn't get to do what they wanted to do. So in turn, they're taking it out on us, which their anger shouldn't be directed at us, but for whatever reason it is. But they're just mad that they didn't get their shiny toy, I guess. I don't know. So
this is crazy. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories of a lot of shit landlords in the city, but this is really quite an extreme.
Well, let me tell you a little sidebar story. Again, I told you I drive a bus for the city of Toronto, and I happen to be doing one day the route that goes right past my apartment, and a bunch of construction workers were just coming from there, and they were getting on my bus. So I played dumb and said, "Oh, you guys work over there?" They're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "Oh, how's it going?" And the one guy goes, "Our boss is making us do stupid things." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, we're making a little bit of noise and a resident complained, so we stopped." And our boss said, "No, F them, make all the noise you want to do." Now, this guy had no idea that I actually lived there. So he's telling me this. So now it's his word and my word. So unfortunately, it's not like we can go to the papers and say this happened. So it's hearsay. But yeah, he told me right to my face that his boss, Jeff, told him to deliberately make as much noise as they wanted at 7:00 in the morning. So take that as what you will, right?
I mean, you can drop the construction company's name at the same time. I'd like to know the name of that foreman. That's incredible. Like, these are people's homes, right? It's not just like this building, this investment, this innate thing. It's home to how many people? How many residents are there?
But we pissed off a rich little kid, and now he's trying to get his back. Is basically
yeah, no doubt.
I'm trying to remember. The name will come to me. I'm trying to remember. But one of the arguments we had is the development of the building next door. They treated it as if it was like a new development, like with nothing around. They didn't treat it as if like there's an existing building here. Like, you guys have to like do things in a way that, okay, like there's tenants that you're supposed to not disturb. But they carried on as if we weren't even here.
Starting at 6 or
they would start at 5:30 in the morning, and then we would obviously complain, and they would deny it, and then I would send the city the video and be like, "Well, here's the video. They're working at 5:30 in the morning," and then the contractor would still deny it, and it would just be like, "How can you deny it? I have the video."
Like, the city wouldn't enforce or do anything to stop it. That's the problem. The city, I don't want to say the city's corrupt, but it sure looks like that.
Well, definitely Stephen
Doc Holiday. Yeah, he's our counselor.
I'm trying to remember the name of the contractor. I can't remember it.
Well, we know from Acorn reports that have been done that developers are by far the largest funders of municipal campaigns in Toronto. So to say that they're corrupt is by no means an exaggeration, except here in Canada, corruption is legalized.
Yeah. Even your progressive counselors.
So. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the AGI challenge number 1. You've already had to kind of get up to speed. I imagine that was a learning curve in itself, right? One of the things you mentioned when we spoke to you at TTU's convention was the scarcity of legal help for tenants. There are people out there, but there's too few of them, and everyone's got a shit landlord, right? So the demand is huge. How did you get up to speed to make an earnest challenge for that first AGI?
Well, I have to say that the first AGI, we couldn't find any legal representation. We went all over, several different community lawyer systems, and regardless, the point I'm trying to make is, so actually Steve and Mike are the two that really, for our first AGI, put their nose in books and started doing their own research. And we had a few other people come on board as well within our building. And Steve can tell you more about that. But basically, we self-represented ourselves. And when I say that, Steve and Mike was our spokesperson. And I think they did a damn good job. But unfortunately, and Steve can contest to, the LTB and their lawyers knew exactly what we were doing by representing ourselves. Steve?
Yeah, so like you were alluding to, or not alluding to, you said it, the lack of representation for tenants is it's really like even in our CMH, even in our case management hearing, the LTB themselves made a point to say that like the scarcity of tenants finding representation it's really high. Like if you're a landlord and want to find representation, like that. If you're a tenant trying to find representation, it's an uphill battle. We tried to utilize a lot of the clinics out there. So your community legal clinics, your legal aid, like you name the community resource that's supposed to be out there. We tried to utilize it, and unfortunately, everybody felt bad and wished us luck, but nobody really helped us. So one of the things that put us behind the eight ball in the first AGI was that, as Jerry said, we were self-litigants. Like we did represent ourselves. We did as much homework as we could. We did utilize, so like even though we couldn't get represented, a lot of the legal clinics did answer questions for us. Like they did provide some help. I don't want to make it sound like they were completely like useless, but like they were able to like help us, but like nobody was there to represent. So like,
we had no legal mind answering questions or picking through what we had as evidence and saying use this, don't use that. So unfortunately, again, we did
so basically preparing the best we could on the knowledge we could of like preparing evidence, preparing facts, like preparing witnesses. Like I think
I'm going to cut in here just because like I have no idea, right? I am you before you ever got an AGI notice. Like what kind of evidence or facts do you try to bring as a tenant to stop an AGI?
Well,
what are you trying to prove?
Yeah. So on the first, and this is where I know one of the questions we're going to get to later on is what we're doing differently. So on the first AGI, like they were billing us for a roof replacement. They were billing us for a riser replacement. They were billing us for a new switchboard in the hydro vault, which the city of Toronto had actually deemed it unsafe 3 years prior and said the building could like probably burn down if it isn't fixed. They also tried to bill us on an energy efficient lighting retrofit, which that's Jerry's laughing, but yeah. And then there was a fifth item they tried to bill us on. So there was a list of items. So like we went down the list in terms of okay, like these are the items they're billing us for. So like
they put the receipts in on what they said that each of these things cost them, and that's what they're trying to get recovery from.
Yeah.
Is the receipts.
So your job is to refute that this work was done or that it's worth X?
So that's what you would think.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah. So we, being self-litigants, and being that the first time we approached it, we thought, okay, those are the list of items they're billing us for. So it's our job to refute that. So like, did they finish the roof? Did they even do the roof? They have an 18-month window on where they need to complete it and pay for it in order to AGI us. Okay? So like there's all those things that they need to do to be able to qualify for the AGI. So we thought, okay, our job to defeat the AGI is to like rebuttal all of those items. Okay? So the problem is that so we did that. We collected evidence. We did everything that you would think you're supposed to do to rebuttal the AGI. But the problem is that as self-litigants, like if you don't have a representative to speak on your behalf, they ignore it. The LTB does not take anything that you present into consideration. Like as an example,
like officially, or that's just the vibe you got?
Officially,
we have
we, for instance, with the roof, we presented. I applied for a freedom of information request from the city, and a City of Toronto inspector actually came out, and when they were supposedly doing the roof, and questioned one of the employees here about if they were doing the roof, why there was no permit for them doing the roof, what was the works going on and whatever. And the employee actually told the City of Toronto building inspector, no, we're not replacing the roof. We're just doing maintenance and patchwork. Okay. So here we have a document from the City of Toronto saying that they didn't actually replace the roof. They're just patching up holes on the roof. But they're presenting receipts saying for $400,000 saying that they replaced the roof. Okay? So we presented that. In addition to presenting that, I asked for before and after pictures. Like, I'm like, we asked, well, can you show us the roof? Like, you're telling us you did the roof.
That you're paying
that
for?
We're paying for. Like, can you show us the before and after pictures? We're like, there's no evidence that you did any work. Like, there's no like garbage. There's no garbage
None
bin.
of us saw any actual physical evidence that they did the roof. No garbage chutes. No, they weren't working up there. There wasn't equipment up there.
Yeah.
There was nothing that we saw. Any resident in this building.
And then at the end of the day, the LTB just said, "Oh no, they have a receipt that they paid for it, so that's good enough for it."
Yeah.
Like, you can buy a receipt. Like, the four of us can go out and buy a receipt.
We're talking about the construction industry and developers here. Yeah, you can get a receipt for probably whatever you need. That is corruption, like, on a whole different level.
And that's what. And the thing is like, now maybe we have a fighting chance if we have a representative, but try fighting that as a self-litigant, right?
Yeah. Well, and the problem is, again, during the LTB hearing, the adjudicator just basically would slough off anything that Stephen or Mike would say. Like, again, because we're not lawyers, we're not using the legal terminology. Their paralegal was basically laughing at us while we were trying to speak, and the LTB adjudicator would just say, "Okay, enough of that. Let's move on. And it's like, well, wait a minute, this is our lives here. And he would just slough it off and say, no, I'm good with what they say. Basically, like Steve said, I've seen the receipt. That's good enough for me. Like, it was blatant spit in your face, Ontario residents.
And I would tell the adjudicator, I'm like, okay, but sir, like, I have evidence that I've submitted to refute what it is that they're saying. And he's like, nah, it's okay. I've heard enough. And it's like, but I haven't even presented my evidence, right? It's a total kangaroo court. Another example I'll give you is they billed us like $100,000, I think, for hydro vault repairs. And to this day, they're not done. And we even showed them a video of the work not being done. We showed them what the room looks like in 2025. And we're like, well, you billed us $100,000 for this work to be done. And you said you paid for the work to be done. And 3 years later, the work is still not done. And here's the video of the room not being done. And the adjudicator was like, I don't believe that that's the room. And I'm like, he didn't believe that the video and the pictures we took were the actual room of the work not being done. So then obviously I assumed that would be the case. So then I even took a picture of the door with the name of the room on it. And I'm like, look, this is the room. And he's just like, next. Yeah. And I'm like, but like, sir, like it's 2025, the work's not done. Here's the video of the work not being done. And he's just like, oh, well, no, that doesn't mean the work's not done. It just means that, it's not to your satisfactory or they didn't maintain it. So you guys are well within your right to fill out a T application for maintenance. But like, that doesn't prove it's not done. And yeah. And like, and then they got approved for it being done. And like that's literally what we faced in our first hearing. Right. Yeah. And yeah. But it's bonkers.
And we can get you the audio video of that first hearing. And oh no, wait, we can't because that day their system wasn't working, so they have no video of our LTB hearing.
Yeah. So in the first 5 minutes of
what about transcripts? Did you ever ask for transcripts?
Yeah. But so in the first 5 minutes of our hearing, when they ruled out that they were not going to allow us to speak to our Section 37. Which was shady to begin with because they said it was a preliminary issue that they discussed with the landlord. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Preliminary issues are supposed to be discussed among the parties. Like, how is it that you discussed a preliminary issue with the landlord separate from us? Like that doesn't make sense. So then when he realized that, I'm basically calling him out. And then he had already come to his decision that he wasn't going to allow that piece of evidence to be used. He's like, it's okay. What does it matter? You guys are going to appeal this decision anyway, right? So he goes, it'll be in the transcripts, or it'll be in the audio video. But then we find out afterwards that, by the way, that day the audio video wasn't working.
That should be a mistrial.
It should be. But we filed an order review. And the order review, they were like, no, we don't find anything wrong with that. So.
No, of course not.
I mean, we've always said that the Landlord and Tenant Board is a kangaroo court, but this is like levels that I have not.
This is like right out of a TV. This is like right out of an episode on like the A-Team with B.A. Baracus. Like it's.
I mean, like that's too gracious. Like the whole kangaroo court makes it seem like they're just stupid and lazy and they don't know what they're doing. They're fucking colluding, right? Because the Landlord Tenant Board is made up of landlords, right? People who are well off and own property and have been in the business and real estate people, and like they all know each other. It's probably incestuous, right? This is very, very deliberate, and I think that preliminary kind of tete-a-tete that you're talking about is just really demonstrative of the relationship that these hedge funds and developers and contractors already have with the members of the LTB, right? And so this is a given going in.
Well, especially because the LTB adjudicators don't even need any legal education. Like you could be an LTB adjudicator if you wanted to, as long as you knew the right people to get you appointed to the position.
And I mean, speaking of legal education, actually, my best friend right now is studying to be a paralegal. And now they come from a similar background, an activist background. And so they wanted, they want to pursue that education for the right reasons, right? And in their classes, they went over Landlord and Tenant Board, but it was all taught to them from the perspective of landlords, not from the perspective of tenants. And even like the professors were all like essentially laughing about tenant issues. They were telling me about this. It was so they were incredibly distraught. And even all of the students, not a single one of them seemed to give a fuck about ever representing tenants, or like it just goes to show you how systemic this issue is. Meanwhile, like I've interviewed people in the past on AGIs. I know how complicated these things can be. Oftentimes, I don't know what it was for you guys, but I've heard of cases where an AGI application can be easily hundreds of pages long, an incredibly difficult document to begin to decipher, and not having any access. I mean, the Landlord and Tenant Board itself, its resources that point towards representation are broken links that lead to nowhere. So even like their own resources for trying to show people where they can get representation don't help you get representation. This system could not be any more broken than it is. I mean, I am absolutely outraged right now.
And at the end of the day, we did not receive our day in court. Even though it's only LTB, or put it what you may, it's still one of the systems of Ontario, and we did not receive a fair day in court, not even close.
Okay, so I'm assuming the first hearing did not go well, the outcome. We've heard the procedure was shit, but my guess is...
Well, okay, going back to that is, because they allowed the landlord 7.5 hours of the day, and then they were getting tired, so they gave us... They said, sum it up in the next half an hour to 45 minutes. And so that's what I'm saying. We didn't even, Steve and Mike couldn't even present the majority of our evidence. We had one actual witness show up, and they wouldn't even let him speak because he'd spoke before at the LTB hearings and they didn't want to hear from him again. So all this stuff, again, we received zero fair treatment in this LTB court. And that's why kangaroo court is, it's giving it too nice of a name, calling it kangaroo court.
So when it came to representation, so Mike and I and a couple of other volunteers, we probably contacted over 50 paralegals. It would start out promising, and then when they found out, I guess, who our landlord was, being a big hedge fund, they pretty much lost interest. So unfortunately, as a result of not having representation, the outcome wasn't good. Now, we as a whole, we presented our case like as you said, not being represented. We did the best we could, and we did a really good job from the sense that their list of 5 items, they actually withdrew one of the items. So upon the risers, so basically, yeah. So the water line. So they were trying to bill us. They were trying to bill us for the replacement of one of the water lines, and basically with our evidence, we proved that like you either didn't do the work, you didn't finish it, or you didn't do it in the timeline where you said you did. And for what they were billing us for, like they billed us for a bunch of stuff that wasn't even that didn't even apply. Like we found out that they tried to pass on work from other stuff. They tried to put it onto that.
All the cabinets that they put into all the new apartments, they were trying to say that they're billing to us.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, wait a minute. It's physically impossible for you guys to use that many cabinets. And then they said, well, no, it's for taking down the cabinets, putting back the cabinets. Like, they lied. We busted, like Steve and Mike and them busted them.
So we basically caught them red-handed, like lying and that. So they withdrew that item on the list. So, for instance, the application was for 3.93%, or it started out as 3. It ended up being 3.93 because LTB determined that they could apply for 3.93. The fact that they didn't N1 us for that is a fight altogether that should have had it dismissed. But once again, we're dealing with LTB. So the landlord actually withdrew the riser one. So automatically, with them withdrawing that request for the AGI, the 3.93 should have came down because now they've withdrawn one of the items. So when you do the math, the 3.93 should have been 3.71. So that's without us even fighting that. That's with the landlord acknowledging, or without acknowledging, that they withdrew that item knowing that we caught them dead to rights on that. Okay? But the LTB still awarded them the 3.93, the entire amount, even though the landlord withdrew the risers. So I've explained that well enough, I hope, right?
I completely understand. I'm trying not to scream.
How do you get the whole amount when they've withdrawn one of the items? So theoretically, if you want to make the math simple, it should be 1/5 less, considering you've gone from 5 items to 4. But the LTB still awarded them the money for all 5 items, even though they withdrew one of the items.
Okay, like you don't even need any more evidence that these two entities are working together, because like who doesn't even get penalized for the fact that you knowingly tried to bill poor residents for upgrades that you didn't even mean, and you take it off. I mean, at that point, in an actual, like, if you had a judge sitting there going, who's telling me the truth, who's lying, you have a party who admits to lying, and they're not penalized, not even monetarily, right, for withdrawing those things. Okay, so we want to have time to tell your whole story. So, like, let's move from
I got one more really quick thing in here, though, just to make you scream.
Yeah.
They gave us our N1 notice, and when we did the math, Steve and Mike came to the conclusion that it was only 89 days, and by law, they're supposed to be 90 days in advance before they can give you your N1. When we brought that to the attention of the LTB, they actually took a 15-minute break. They came back and said, no, we counted everything, and it was 90 days. And so we couldn't fight that anymore. But then when the results came out, they acknowledged that it was actually only 89 days, but they're going to allow it.
Oh, yeah.
So they actually perjured themselves in an LTB hearing.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was crazy. So that wasn't Mike and I who figured that out. It was another volunteer, but Mike and I put it forward. I just want to make sure, because that person's going to see or hear this and be like, well, I did that. And so it wasn't Mike and I. It was one of the many volunteers we have.
Okay, it's taken a village. But okay, so I'm going to guide you to this next one.
This is the first AGI, right? We're talking. What year was this?
This was an application for 2022, but the hearing was in 2025.
Okay.
3 years. Okay. So it ended how it ended, and you experienced what you experienced. Now, I imagine that defeat, did that not make it difficult to convince people to try again, to try to challenge, to not just cut and run? I know that there's not a lot of choices even to run to, but that is quite discouraging, to maybe go back to residents who weren't as actively involved and say, here's how it went, but don't worry, we're going to try this again. What was that like, kind of sitting with the results of the first, knowing you have 4 more to challenge?
Well, sure. Okay. So one thing that, so the way we went at it is we tried to keep people as informed as possible every step of the way. So we let people know that we went to great lengths to get representation. We let people know, obviously, that we didn't have representation. We also let people know how important it was to attend these hearings, to see for themselves what's going on, and to show the landlord that you are engaged and that you're not just like writing it off. Like in our hearings, like our attendance, like for our CMH and for our hearings, like we had like over 70 people in the room attending these hearings. So like they were well attended. So one thing that we made abundantly clear to people is that even though we were fighting, that we couldn't speak to what we thought could end up being major corruption of the LTB. So we kind of let people know ahead of time that, look, we're going to put our best foot forward. We're going to present our evidence. We're going to be transparent. We're going to show you guys everything that we're doing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it may not matter because it's a kangaroo court. And then sure enough, it kind of went worst case scenario, and it turned out to be a kangaroo court. So I think people...
You managed their expectations to begin with.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I also think being as transparent as we were, people saw what we did and what we presented. And because they took part, they participated in the hearings, they saw how well prepared we were. They saw our evidence and they saw the injustice. So I don't think it discouraged people. I think it kind of lit a fire for people, to be honest with you.
A portion of
people. It also helped us going forward in the sense that we made it abundantly clear to people that, look, guys, we put our best foot forward. We put a lot of work into this. There was a lot of volunteer hours. There was a lot of administrative. There was a lot of paperwork. And they didn't even give us the time of day. So we stressed to people how important it was to pursue legal representation, and that, like, guys, like, if you know anybody, if you know a lawyer, if you know a paralegal, like anybody you know that could possibly lead to a representative, like there's no way we can proceed with 4 other AGIs without representation. So what it led to is the second AGI that we're currently waiting for a hearing date. We were able to acquire representation. So it helped from that sense, because people, yes, there were people that got discouraged, but it also helped people realize that, wait a minute, like, we can't fight this on our own. Like, you have to hire somebody. Like, it's rigged. Like, there's, like, no matter what you say and do, they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to give you that opportunity. So, like, what we did differently this go around is we were able to get representation on the second go around. So the second one's going a little better so far. So hopefully that answers your question there.
I do have a question about, like, one of the specifics. So you say it took 3 years to get this, like from when the AGI was applied to getting it done. Now that it's been rewarded, is it retroactive, the payments, or like how, like, is it just one giant bill, or is it that people have been paying the increased rates the whole time?
Okay, so they did win. They were awarded the retroactive, the entire amount. So one of the requests we made, and you have to make this in the hearing, you can't make it after the fact. We made the point that we're a building that's composed of many seniors. So we requested a 12-month repayment period so that it would spread the amount over the 12 months. So unfortunately, once again, it's LTB. The landlord refused, obviously. And I think what the standard is for LTB is, I think the standard is 6 months. We requested a year. So the LTB did award us in the end 8 months to repay the retroactive amount. So that was what was awarded in the end. So they did give us a time frame to pay back the retroactive amount.
Do we have any idea? I mean, we could look this up if anybody's done the data. How often the LTB reject an AGI?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that there is one. There might be, but I don't know that. I haven't found one personally.
It doesn't sound promising, you know? I mean, they don't even go over the itemized invoices, right? Like they just look at the receipts, but they don't verify them in any way, right? It really is just a rubber stamp, it seems like.
No, for instance, the retroactive repayment that we're supposedly have to pay back is wrong. And we even brought it to the attention of the LTB.
Like the math is wrong?
The math is wrong. And we've even brought it to their attention, and they've acknowledged that, yes, you guys are right. The math is wrong. It needs to be corrected. But like we're now 7 months later and the math isn't corrected. And then when you write to the building and you're like, hey, the LTB has confirmed the math is wrong. You're saying that I owe you $1,600 in retroactive pay. According to the correct math, it's $1,200. Like, you guys need to correct this. And then, but the landlord won't acknowledge that the math is wrong, even though the LTB has acknowledged the math is wrong, but the landlord won't. So then you got to try to get the LTB to enforce to the landlord that, hey, the amount that you're retroactively collecting from people is wrong. But trying to get the LTB to enforce that is another fight altogether.
Sorry, besides getting legal representation for the second go round, what else do you find yourselves doing a little bit differently to prepare? I know you don't have a hearing date yet, but I mean, are you going into the boiler room taking photos? Are you gathering the same kind of evidence for whatever they said they did back in 2023, the repairs?
Okay, I'll start off with a little bit of it. Steve will have to finish it off. But so this AGI that we're about to fight, it's only a one item, and it's the geothermal unit that they put in the ground to provide air conditioning and heating to our building, HVAC. Yeah. So and this is where the fight is going to come in, because they're denying that this whole new big building that's 220 some apartments are not receiving any benefits from this geothermal system that they put in, that was just put in for our building. So, and this is like, we haven't gone to case on this yet. So this is just, leading up to, but we have a feeling that we're going to have a fight really hard because they want us to pay for the whole geothermal system. Now I'll let Steve elaborate.
So where we've approached this tactic different, and once again, we do have representation this time. Her name is Kim Teal of Douglas Law Firm. I will give her a plug. Where we are approaching this differently is we're going after the application process more thoroughly. So, like, for instance, like they have 90 days to file N1s. They have 60 days for certain things when applying for L5. So what we've done is we've been more tedious going after them in the application process and in the administrative process. And we've actually found a lot of filing errors on behalf of the landlord that are fatal errors that could very well win us our case. So we've concentrated more on the administrative part than the evidence-based photos, work orders, stuff like that. So we've taken a little bit of a different approach, but we didn't come up with that on our own. We've done that as per the direction of the paralegal, right? So we've focused more on that end of it on this go around. So I don't know. We don't now, because it's currently going on. We don't know if it's working, but the good sign that it might be working is that we actually had a hearing date for June 23rd. And then upon the landlord seeing our submitted evidence, they applied for an adjournment because they realized that they were like
They weren't prepared.
they were screwed based on our evidence submitted.
Well, because they thought they were going to be dealing with us again without representation.
Yeah.
And when they found out that we had representation, that changed the whole situation.
Yeah, we acquired representation at the 11th hour. So as soon as they realized we were represented and they realized that, oh, wait a minute, like these guys have evidence that can bring this down, they adjourned the hearing right away. So that's a positive, I guess, that they didn't proceed, because I think they would have proceeded had they thought that they could win it, right? So it's definitely a positive going forward, but it's very early on in the process, so I don't know. I mean, we still don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but it looks very different this time going through. So,
in terms of organizing your building, how is that going? As this is an ongoing process and there's so much drama around your building, are you able to organize outside the legal challenges?
In terms of the tenant association, yes, there has been some challenges. For the most part, the engagement's been really good. A lot of times when you start a tenant association, the engagement's really low. Like maybe you have like maybe 5% or whatever. We had like our engagement is over 60%. So like we have really good numbers in terms of the engagement of our TA. People took to it right away. There's always an ongoing battle in terms of like getting volunteers to do work and stuff, but like in terms of engagement, it's been pretty good.
Do you have any advice for other buildings who are going through something similar? Maybe not specific to AGIs, but in learning how to get that kind of engagement and maintain it? I mean, you've already given us a few lessons that I'll remind people. I mean, being transparent with people and managing expectations, letting them know, the possibilities, and being honest about the long road ahead. And, naturally, folks come together in a crisis. But is there anything else that you've learned that works, that has helped build family at 240 Markland?
I was going to say, number one thing right now is the Toronto Tenant Union. We've been able to go to some of their meetings, and we've learned some invaluable information. And on top of that, now we've actually added to our family with the Toronto Tenant Union, where, and we've seen it firsthand. Everyone here has seen it in the newspapers, where that lady was getting locked out of her place, and they went and held her lobby until they made changes. So number one is the TTU has to grow. So I want to encourage anybody that lives in a building or rents, period, to contact the TTU and let it know that these people will do a lot for you. There's a lot of good people in this organization, and there's a lot of resources that if you don't have knowledge on it, they can give you the knowledge and the resources.
Yeah, the one thing that I would suggest to people, or advice, and in terms of maybe like things that went well or things that didn't go well, is that the resource that's out there, Federation of Metro Tenant Associations, and then the Toronto Tenant Union, the resource that's out there is the tenant toolkit or the tenant handbook. And one of the things that I think I would suggest or recommend differently that we didn't do that we probably should have done, although it's our tenant associations kind of worked out, but I think it's worked out more so because we've just endured and we've got it to go through. But one thing that I think I would recommend to people is to get that structure set up right off the bat. So like figure out who your chair is, your vice chair, your treasurer is, like get that figured out beyond and maintain that. So as I said, we've kind of juggled those positions, and we've kind of gone on, like we've made it work, But if I had to suggest something that would be make it a hurdle to have people avoid, is to really get that set up and really get that up and running early on. So
That's good advice. It's one of the requirements as well for you to join the TTU as a building, right? Is to have certain positions marked in your TA, which can be very, very small, right? It doesn't have to be 60% engagement or even a large building. They do make it possible for all sorts of associations and groups to join on to them. I'm glad to see. I mean, you'd already received assistance from the TTU to some degree when we spoke to you last time, but that was the early convention. We were curious as to what it would lead to. We've been reading updates on their social media, but to hear that you've been able to again access their resources and gain some confidence and some skills, knowledge from them, that's very promising. Because you've got really, really bad landlords, but knowing what I know, they've learned this behavior from their peers. This is all part of also, I feel like, the greenwashing that goes on with Toronto buildings and the billing of residents for capital improvements that will increase the value of the properties that these rich people own is another topic altogether, right? Like, because that's what AGIs are. You have residents are paying to increase the value of the property for the landowner. Yes, you might have a faster elevator or cooler air conditioning, maybe, right? Because now we're finding out from these folks that some of this stuff isn't even done. This is just, it's all bullshit. But even if it were done, in theory, like, this just increases the value. And that's what the whole thing is. It's an investment to them. It's just a means to make more cash.
On the other side of the coin, too, is also we have all faithfully paid our rent without question for, like, a lot of us have been here. Like, I'm one of the newbies, and we've been here for 15 years. So, it's not like, and this is where it gets frustrating because my assumption, again, our assumption was when they bought this building, they didn't know that apparently the roof was bad. So you can't tell me that there wasn't deals made for the cost to be lower, but they're still charging us for it. So they're literally double dipping.
They're triple dipping.
The price of the building was reduced to compensate for these issues, but then they're fixing these issues, maybe, because we still to this day have not seen one picture of anything before and after with the roof. We have no proof that they did anything on our roof whatsoever, except for the legal proof that Steve found in the Freedom of Information Act that contradicts that they did the roof. So, it's a crazy system that we're living in right now.
Yet you're still laughing and smiling with each other. I mean, I do love that.
Yeah, well, I am today. I won't be later on, that's for sure. But tomorrow, for instance, we're fighting the first AGI. So we have filed an appeal in divisional court for the first AGI. So we are appealing it, and even that's a process in itself that's really difficult. So I have a consult with a lawyer tomorrow to follow up with. We had a case conference in divisional court last week. So it's never ends. It's to be honest, it's like a part-time job for help running that I don't get paid for. Helping run a tenants association, especially when you have a landlord that's fighting you every step of the way. And getting back to what Jerry was saying, it's like, I think the whole point of what the AGI process is I think the idea with the AGI is it's like you own a triplex, something happens, the roof leaks. So Jerry and I own a triplex, the roof leaks, it's a $50,000 repair. Between Jerry and I, it's a lot of money to do a $50,000 repair. So then that's where the AGI process comes in. But for instance, Carterra Equities Management Inc., they're a $7.5 billion hedge fund. They don't need help replacing the roof.
They don't need help, period.
You know what I mean?
But yes.
What exactly is rent supposed to be for at that point, right?
Yeah, correct. You know,
and that was the point that I was making. Like, we've all, like, 135 apartments that faithfully be paying their rent every month. Did that money not go into maintenance throughout the, like, if the roof was so bad that they had to replace the roof, their words, not mine, the old landlord neglected it to the point where we're in danger. And again, with the hydro vault, apparently we were in danger. Like, so all these people put our lives at risk for 3 to 4 years. And at the end of it all, it's like, now we're paying the bill to have everything fixed.
so we're like, where's my rent going? If you're telling me you have to AGI me for a roof.
Well, you know where your rent's going, right? Someone's pension, and then it becomes this thing that we can't dismantle because everybody's retirement is dependent on these pension funds that are really just making retirement impossible. It's a very, very circular problem here that we've tried to examine a few times on Blueprints of Disruption, that concept that a lot of these pension funds, the teachers' pension fund, are invested in dubious companies, companies that, kill the planet, poison the earth, and, try to price people out of their homes. It is a real problem, and that's even besides the fact that it's a David and Goliath type setup where they're being aided by the only mechanism that's been put there to try to assist you in that power imbalance, right? Like, that's what the LTB is for. It used to be landlord says this, tenant does whatever. And we put all these laws, we put all these rent controls, and they seem to be all for naught. And not to discourage you to use them and go through the processes, but shit, this is an uphill battle.
We also have I'm not sure if it's an angle, but we've also reached out to the Ombudsman of Ontario, and that is actually, for anyone listening, is where you go if you have a complaint about the LTB. And so we have put a complaint in. We've been dealing with them for a while now. We have a new caseworker, and she's actually looking in to see if the LTB did do wrong, or so there's some more, another side of it that's also in the works that it doesn't have anything to do with the TA, because this is like my own personal, Steve and I, our own personal complaints against LTB. So hopefully, like, again, at the end of the day, all we want is our fair day in court. That's all we're asking for.
And here's another twist with our AGI in particular. Now, this isn't a broad item for AGIs out there for other people, but people should look into this because it may be a mechanism for them. Now, our building and our development in particular, I'm pointing here, the developer actually signed a Section 37 agreement with the province, which is a Planning Act document, where in order for the developer to get the zoning and permitting to build the new development next to us, I call it the monstrosity because it just basically towers over us and like it basically touches us. The landlord entered into a Section 37 agreement, which is a legal contract in Ontario with the City of Toronto and the Province of Ontario through the Planning Act, where in our specific situation, subsection 5.12 says that the landlord agrees to do all the building, maintenance, and upkeep to the existing building without any pass-on expenses to the existing tenants. So we actually have a legal document where the developer agreed, in order to get the zoning to build the new building, that they were going to do all this, and they were going to do all of it at the concession of maintaining this building, doing a bunch of improvements to this building, and doing so at no additional cost to us to like compensate for the 5 years of construction and to basically as a concession to get the zoning to build this monstrosity. Okay. Yet they're still AGIing us. Have I explained that well enough?
You did, because you also explained when you tried to bring up the Section 37 in the first hearing, there was no having it.
Yeah.
Which to me is ridiculous.
They won't even.
That just seems so clear cut. What is the point of, making this concession? Because the city knew what the ulterior motive was of the builders, right? They wanted a blank slate. And they said, no, you can't have that. And they tried to make some parameters around there, but it seems like no one was willing to ever make sure that that actually happened. Or didn't happen, rather.
Yeah, correct. You nailed it. You got it, right? You nailed it. Yeah.
I mean, this should be front page of every major publication in this city, this case.
We go to every media you can imagine. That's why we're so grateful that you guys are giving us the opportunity today.
I've been blocked by like Toronto Star, Toronto Sun. Like I've literally been blocked by media.
It's not surprising because we know how they function. Meanwhile, they'll publish a tenant does anything wrong, and they'll publish a million articles about like career tenants or whatever the fucking terminology is that they use.
And I don't condone that either. Like I don't condone anybody not paying their rent, like, as a mechanism to like scam. Like I like pay your rent. Like it's like we're pro rent strike. Don't get me wrong, but like I don't think that anybody should not pay their rent. But at the same time, you should at least be getting what your money's worth or what you're paying for.
It's more of just clearly how the system is so rigged in one favor, right? Like anything, landlords do anything, and it's so much effort to do anything about it. Meanwhile, if tenants do anything wrong, well, there's 1,000,001 ways that they can take us down, right?
Yeah, and the province has made it easier for landlords. In the meantime, while these folks have been going through this struggle, right, they've made it easier and sooner for landlords to apply for evictions, right, based on non-payment of rent. They've made it faster for landlords when they want it to be, when they don't need an adjournment to get through the LTB for their claims. And, all of this in an existing environment that was already slanted towards landlords. Which is why it's so encouraging to see folks mounting up resistance, like organized resistance, thoughtful pushback to this. And, the least we can do is help amplify your story so other people that are going through this can gain some motivation, some courage, some actual skills. Like you've shared so much knowledge here that I think would be news to people. It was news to me. And there's no shortage of landlords there relying on that ignorance. And I say ignorance in the most loving way. I mean, we're kept in the dark on purpose, right?
Of course. Yeah,
so I very much appreciate that you do have this part-time job, that you do go through this slog, and even if you anticipate it's in a reg system and it will be unsuccessful, because nothing would be more maddening to know that they could do all of this without facing any pushback at all. Right? As hard as it is, it would be so hard to imagine doing nothing at all and steamrolling over that entire building.
Not fighting is not an option to us. That's the approach we've taken as a tenant association. Doing nothing or not fighting is not an option. Like we have to, if for nothing more, just for optics. Like because we've gotten 5 consecutive AGIs, but like. We've gotten 5 consecutive with fighting. Can you imagine, we may not get a 6. I imagine they're just going to AGI us to oblivion. But can you imagine if we didn't fight? They would just keep AGIing us every single year. They could.
So I was just going to say, and that's the beauty of the social media part too, is we're now learning that there's a lot more buildings that are going through the same thing that we are that we did not know about. So the fact that we're all seeing each other in the same fight is actually going to hopefully unite us to the point where the province or even maybe the country will have to stop and take a look, hopefully, take a look at the whole AGI concept, right?
Yeah. And I can't imagine how often, how many cases there are where a building who isn't even remotely organized, something like this comes along and people just have to accept it or leave because no one's willing to fight. Like that's probably the far more common story in all of this, and we can only imagine how many of those cases, similarly, if people did fight, would uncover how fictitious a lot of it could be. I mean, God, I wish that every building had people like your building does that could fight against this, because I mean, people need to. I mean, it's our basic rights. I mean, you say even like you said, like all you wanted was like your day in court. It's like it's not even want at that point. It's rights, like this is people's rights. that are being trampled on. And at that point, what the fuck does it mean to live in this country and like yeah, what does any of it mean at all?
We didn't even get that. We upon waiting for the first hearing, our thought process was, we're going to get our day in court. We're going to get our day in court, like speaking to what you're saying. And then to get our day in court, but then to not get our day in court, like I was flabbergasted. I was just like, they completely shut out our day in court. Like they completely, they peed on it. Like they completely took our day in court away from us. It was really bad.
What it is a giant fuck you. Like, there's no other way to interpret that. It's a giant fuck you.
It was. Yeah. I was trying to put it differently, but yeah.
and that's why, again, I keep saying the Toronto Tenant Association or Acorn, all those different things, if we can finally unite, like politicians right now don't give a damn about our votes, but if we unite strong, where how many renters, so let's just say for an argument's sake that there's 2.5 million renters in the GTA, that's a lot of votes. And eventually the politicians are going to have to listen to us once they came to the conclusion that, holy shit, these people are starting to unite. And that's what it's always about, power in numbers. We because right now it's like you said, these little buildings that don't even know they have a right to fight are getting walked over by these landlords. And it's just a big fucking joke for them. They're drinking cognac at night, laughing about how many people they screwed over today. We need to fight.
Yeah, win or lose, you folks are building up.
And we tried. We really have. So like we get harassed. Like it's so bad here because of the pushback from us. Like Jerry can attest. Like I'll get off the elevator and I'll get accosted by management. Like it's gotten to a point now where I probably have to get a body cam to walk around the building. Yeah, it's so bad.
This no BS. It's true.
I'm not even joking. Like I've been accosted. I've had they've called the cops on me and they've made fake claims that I've tried to I don't even want to get into what they've claimed. But yeah, it's all been disproven, obviously. But it's just like I literally need a body cam to walk around with what's gone on with the management here. So and they're allowed. And the sad part is they're allowed to do it. But that's like when you report it, they just even Toronto police have shrugged their shoulders at me. They're just like, oh, well, like, we can't do anything. And I'm like, well, like, what? Like, they're coming, like, I showed you guys the sign earlier, like, of them coming into people's units. And, like, it's like people have called the police and said, hey, like, my landlord's come in my unit and stole my TV and stole my engagement ring and, like, vandalized my furniture. And the police have just been like, oh, nothing we can do. It's your landlord. There's nothing we can do.
So, yeah, it is a broken system all the way from the top to the bottom.
Can you imagine though? If I did that to my landlord, what would happen?
We can. The cops are ready and well funded to respond to that. But I just
we first ask questions later,
if they even. I want to just also give you folks credit for doing the work of building up the tenant class mentality as well within your building, and by forging this battle against such a huge hedge fund that has other buildings in its repertoire, right, that it's surely to use these tactics against if it's not already. And so that fighting spirit is part of building the tenant class, and the consciousness, right, that we are in Toronto 50% of the population, and that is a force to be reckoned with, even outside elections. Let's hope more so. Just imagine what kind of force you're building, you're being a part of as well. So thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time here and the work that you're doing on the ground. You better keep us updated. We want to know how the appeal goes. We want to know how the second AGI challenge goes. And we wish you the best of luck. And we'll be sure to kind of pump your signal whenever we see these updates. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure speaking to you guys and engaging with your media network. So thank you for giving us your time and attention today. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Solidarity.
That is a wrap on another episode of Blueprints of Disruption. Thank you for joining us. Also, a very big thank you to the producer of our show, Santiago Halu Quintero. Blueprints of Disruption is an independent production operated cooperatively. You can follow us on Twitter at BP of Disruption. If you'd like to help us continue disrupting the status quo, please share our content, and if you have the means, consider becoming a patron. Not only does our support come from the progressive community, so does our content. So reach out to us and let us know what or who we should be amplifying. So until next time, keep disrupting.